Welcome back. How's it going, everyone? Happy session number 4 on day 1 of the People Magic Summit. I don't know if it's just me, but actually really love the music that plays before we go on. I was kind of jamming to it right beforehand, but can I get some fire emojis in the chat? If you're here, you are ready to learn from the one and only Tiffany Aliche. Before we jump into her, let me just introduce myself for a second here. My name is Toper Ravadia. I'm a senior community strategist at Mighty Networks. I have helped some of the biggest names in the online space building online profitable community-based businesses. And so now that you know who I am, I want to introduce to the stage and bring onto the stage the one and only Tiffany Aliche. She is known as the Budgetnista. She has a Netflix documentary. She has a New York Times bestselling book. She's a financial educator and coach, and she has helped over 2 million people achieve financial independence through the Live Richer Academy. Welcome, Tiffany.
Hi, Topher. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I'm great.
You've got great skin, by the way. You've got this glow. It's so amazing.
I thank my parents.
Yeah, it runs in the genes. Awesome. So I know a little bit about who you are. I know that you were a preschool teacher before this. I also know that your father was an accountant, right? Taught you some financial kind of education basics at a very young age. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if everyone in the crowd is aware of who you are. So I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and speak a little bit more about the journey of how Tiffany Aliche became the Budgetnista.
Sure. So 16 years ago, started the Budgetnista. I was still teaching preschool at the time. I went to school for business, hated corporate America, and decided, I think I want to teach. And I loved it so much. But it was in teaching that I realized a lot of my parents were struggling financially, a lot of the parents of my kids. And I was early 20s, but I grew up learning about money at home. My dad was a CFO of a small nonprofit and an accountant, a chief financial officer. So my 4 sisters and I learned about money since, I can't remember not talking about money. And so I just would, during nap time, I would put the kids down and parents would come and learn how to budget, learn how to do their taxes. And it just became like parent university at nap time. But then the recession hit and my school closed because they lost their funding. And I thought, I think I'll do this full time. It was really rough times. I made so many financial mistakes. But as I was fixing my financial mistakes, from credit card scams to losing my house to foreclosure because I lost my job during the recession, to everything you can think of, I just said, I'm good at learning, I'm good at teaching. And so I started the Budgetnista. And so 16 years, 1 New York Times bestseller, 1 law in New Jersey, the Budgetnista law, making financial education for middle school students. And that's 2 million people plus later, we're here. So
we're here 16 years later. What a journey. Oh my gosh. I want to zoom into your journey a little bit more. Who we have here in the audience are people who are just getting started in their online business, online community journey. What happened to you was very interesting, right? You were a teacher. You had this level of expertise, right? You were several steps ahead in kind of the financial journey compared to most people. What would you say was the first few steps in pursuing an online business and putting content out there?
So I started my business in a very interesting time. When I first started, Facebook was still very much EDU, like you had to have an EDU, and so it was transitioning over. So I started by teaching in person, like so many people, you do your business in person because there really wasn't, like, social media wasn't for that. It was like family, friends, or maybe you went to a specific school. And so I remember distinctly when this shift started to happen, like 2009, 2010, when I was teaching. I was working with the United Way of Greater New Jersey. I had written their curriculum. I have my master's in education, their financial education curriculum. And I was teaching classes weekly for the community. They paid me and it was free for the community. And then Facebook just came out with like Facebook groups and things, and folks kept emailing me individually about questions. And so I thought, well, what if I created this online community space where I said, you can ask me questions here so everyone gets the benefit. So I started
Mm,
early on thinking, how do I take this in-person community and make it online? And so I did.
mm,
But then what I found was is that um, as I started to build communities, that was my first one, that people were coming in. Like I would post and say, "Hey, don't forget classes tonight," and someone would say, "I live in Florida." Now, meanwhile, I live in New Jersey, and I'm like, "Florida? What are you doing here? You're not in my class, like my physical class." And then I'd be like, "Well, I don't have anything for you." And then somebody else would say, "I live in Oklahoma. I want help too." I'm like, "Well, can you get to New Jersey on Tuesday?" Like, I don't. And then my teacher brain clicked and said, "Well, if what if you not just have this online community? What if you also put the knowledge on digitally too? Because
mm,
then that's really what built the community. When people ask me like what exploded the Budgetnista, we created a financial challenge that was free, our literature challenge, and we launched it in January because everybody wants to get on financial track, and it was totally digital. There was no in-person anything, although we had like an end of the challenge kind of in-person party. But it was kind of the first time I realized, like, wow, that there are three components that are necessary to create transformation. It's knowledge, access, and community. And so it's like, okay, the knowledge is the book, the course, whatever. Some people think if I give the book, the course, whatever, digitally, that's enough. It's not. If you're not seeing movement, it's because you're probably just doing that. Access to experts. Who is the guide? As I'm reading the book or taking the course, who can I ask questions of who knows more than me? And so at first it was just me. Now I have other guides. And then the community piece was critical. I have built so many communities since then, upwards of 500,000 people to as little as 500 in communities, because people might come for you, the expert, but they stay for each other. And so that community piece has been transformational. It is the reason why the Budgetnista is an 8-figure business today. It's because we are so good at building communities.
that is amazing. I love to hear that. And knowledge, access, community. And you're so right. Most creators kind of just focus on the knowledge and access part,
Mhm.
one or two out of the three buckets, kind of neglecting that community aspect.
Yeah.
And there's this big focus in the industry about content, right?
Mhm.
Content. But the narrative that we're trying to build here is that it's also about community. It's
Yes.
also about the one-to-many relationships that you're building, and that is actually what is unique to your brand, right?
Mhm.
There could be other financial educators, financial coaches out there, but what makes you unique are the people that believe in the Budgetnista mission,
Mhm.
right? It's your social capital within the brand and bringing those people together to connect and learn from each other while
Yeah.
digesting your knowledge,
Yes.
your access,
Yeah.
right? And that's what really built this movement. So that's so
Yeah.
amazing to hear. Um, what would you say is, digging in on the community aspect piece?
Mhm.
What would you say is the important role of a host within a community? What are the characteristics of a good host within a community? How and taking from your experience of building so many communities,
Mhm.
what do you think that you did, which made you very successful at building communities?
Well, you have to create a movement within the community, right? Because people just standing in a room are just people standing in the room. Now you ask some music, now we have a party. And so I realized, like, in the beginning it was like, okay, people are just in this community just kind of looking at each other. You have to give people something to do collectively. Think about like I don't know, camp, or maybe you go to, like, you have a religion that you're a part of. Like, you are actively collectively doing something together, and that builds connection. So it's like for my financial challenges, it's like, hey, we're going to do these financial tasks together. Or maybe you have a community for exercising. Hey, every morning at 6 a.m., we're going to do this exercise together. So the number one thing about the host is they are there to guide and say, this is what we're doing collectively today. Oftentimes, the host, too. The beautiful part that I have learned over years of building community is that every host does not need to be an expert. They just, so you have the experts who, like, I come in, I might say, hey, I'm teaching a class today, but then weekly I have hosts who are just like, so wasn't that so great what we learned from Tiffany? Let's practice together. They're just
Mm,
there to guide the movement. You have to have movement in order for your community to gel. The moment that you don't give them something to do, then it kind of all falls apart. So you have to, there's a reason why, like, you say, for example, you go to church, it's every Sunday. Every Sunday there is a directive that, like, you sing songs, you read this, I mean, sometimes we forget when we're building something that what we're building, we can find examples of success in it in our everyday lives. It's like you wouldn't go to a religious organization that you just kind of just sat there. It's like, well, no, how do I create this kind of movement? What can we do together? So yeah, so I would say that yes, the importance of a host is critical. They do not have to be experts. They just have to help move the movement along.
Move the movement along. Be facilitators,
Yes.
right? You don't necessarily need to know all of the things. You could be a couple steps ahead. You could be one step ahead, but also all of the value doesn't need to be on your back, right?
No.
There are other people who have amazing stories, who also have their own advice and expertise in their own little ways
Yes.
to share. And so, as a host, a really great host, ask polls, ask
Yes.
questions. And I
Yes.
love what you said about programming. Like
Yes.
the challenge is as the lead into your business, there
Mhm.
was intentionality each day of here's the one thing that we're mastering, here's the thing that we're doing day by day. And what I think about, and we're actually going to go into this in the 14-day free trial, but I'll challenge, but I'll talk about that later. The most successful communities have what we call at Mighty Networks monthly themes
Mhm.
and a weekly calendar. You have to have a
Yes.
reason to come back,
There you
right?
go. I
Tell me
call
more
it
about that
so I
in
like
your
to do a
community.
mix. So to me, people need what I call must-see TV, right? So must-see TV, I grew up like watching you're like really young, Topher. I'm 45, so just don't let this good skin fool you. But I remember on Friday nights there used to be TGIF. You would watch like Family Matters. Who remembers? What else were the shows? It was like all these shows. It was like 4 or 5 shows that you could watch with your family every Friday night. So it was fun times, right? But that's must-see TV, meaning that in your community there has to be every Friday, every third Thursday, something that I can set my clock to. So I like to have a mix of must see TV, meaning something they can set their clock to, and then you have to delight in awe. And so there's something where it's monthly or whatever, but you don't necessarily know the date or the time or what's going to be. So I like this kind of, because after a while, must see TV will become boring. So we have every week we have the same kind of like things happening weekly, so people can kind of tune in. But then once a month, I come in and shake stuff up, where I'm like, hey, so they just know it's once a month. It might be Tuesday, it might be Saturday, it might be. So you see what I mean? So having that mix is such a great way to keep the excitement going, but then not overwhelmed, because folks know. But every Tuesday, I know that we have this check-in with the host. Yeah.
It's like my favorite analogy is like when I went to the YMCA a few months ago and I was signing up for a gym membership, the first question, and I didn't do this on purpose because I'm I build communities and am familiar with monthly themes and weekly calendar. But my first question as soon as I came in was, can I see your calendar of events? Can I see your programming? That way I can plan to be there and know what's happening when. And the really cool thing is that for communities that have this sense of intentionality when it comes to programming, we see retention go up the roof, right?
Yep.
So could you share, you shared some nuggets around your favorite kind of weekly calendar items and monthly themes. Could you share a couple more ideas to kind of give to the audience as to what you've seen work in your own community?
So people need to be tapped on the shoulder. So when people sign into our communities, depending what community it is, we often have we have them sign up for like a text reminder. We get their name, we get their email, we get text no matter what. Because if I'm going to come on, how would you know when I'm going to come on? Because must see TV is like, we know every Thursday this thing is dropping, or every third Wednesday there's something. But I like to say, hey, in a few days I'm coming to Texas. Who's there? And we do that via text messaging and email. And so one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started building community is I did not use as an entry point to collect contact information. It was just like, come one, come all, which is great. But then how do you talk to people? How do you say, I've got a thing I want to share? And so now you come in right away. We're like, what's your name? What's your email? What's your text? What's your phone number? So, and we don't harass them via text and email, just so when important things come up, you might not be in the group. So we might tap you on the shoulder and say, you might want to go in the group today. Something important dropped. And people come running to the group. So that was something that worked. Something else that I've learned after years of building community is that I used to be the host, the expert. It was exhausting. And then what happened is that people inside the community would tap me on the shoulder and say, I love what you're doing. Can I help? And I'm like, I don't even know how, And then I realized, wait, the best hosts are community members, really active community members. So like, I would be like, so usually the first, like if I'm building a new community, the first month or two, I do the thing, and then I kind of either let them self-identify or identify people who are very active and say, I would love for you to be hosts inside my community. What do you think? And they're like, oh my gosh. So the host I have now, one of my communities I have is a business mentorship community. And in exchange, the hosts, they every quarter we do like I walk with it's snowing now, but or snowy that I usually take a walk like almost every single day. And once a quarter, they get a walk and talk with me. There's only like 4 or 5 hosts where we could talk up to 2 or 3 hours. They get to pick my brain for free. But in exchange, every other week, they do check-ins with the mentees inside the group. I don't have to do those check-ins. I come in once a month. They come in every other week in exchange. So, you want to make sure that your hosts are getting value too. Like some people pay their hosts, some people there's something special you do for them, and for them they get access to me. And so, so that hosting part is critical.
Huge. And that I love that you brought this up, because that is the fastest and easiest way to scale a community, right? If you've got a solid big purpose, you've got solid programming, which we're talking about, you're facilitating community well, there are going to be natural leaders that come up in the community that are like, hey, I want to support, I want to help. How do I do that? And so that's so great that you were able to kind of create community leadership, ascend people into a host level position to help kind of scale the knowledge and expertise and access, right? So that's really beautiful. This is actually the really cool thing about building an online business, you know what I mean, is, or specifically being in the infopreneur space, is that really what we're doing is we are transferring our beliefs and our knowledge onto others. And if someone has been following and helping you and supporting you for a long time, like a big fan of the Budgetnista, they will get to a place where they too have a solid foundation of your expertise, your brain. They've downloaded your brain. And so why not leverage these people who want to contribute and be part of the mission, the larger mission, right? So I love that you brought that up.
I call it powder donut marketing is what I call it. So like I'm eating a powder donut, and I touch one host's shoulder and she gets powder donut on her. I don't have to touch every single person in the community, because as she bumps into everyone else, that powder donut hits the next and the next. That really good businesses know how to I only have to touch this periphery of people, and then they go out to do the work. To bump into other people with goodwill and leave a little powder donut. And then those people bump into next people. I think not enough people really understand that, like, you have to make your messaging palatable. You want to make your group welcoming, because when you do that, I mean, I do good work for a living, literally. We provide financial education for those who might not otherwise have access. In the beginning, folks told me, Tiffany, you can't make money doing that. Well, almost $50 million later, I beg to differ. And we've always stayed in alignment. We don't deviate. For example, I don't believe I use credit cards, but I don't believe in selling credit cards. I'm like, I will tell you how your best practice is, but literally I could have made millions more, because banks ask me every day to sell their credit cards. And I'm like, no, because the people that come to me are financial diabetics, and credit cards are sugar. Sugar in general is not necessarily bad, but not for what I do, And so I get to do good work for a living, but because of my ability to grow community, we are very successful. We're 47% profit, which is unheard of. I don't have no one's invested in my business. I built it literally from scratch. Preschool teacher. I've only ever had two jobs: preschool teacher and Budgetnista. Literally, there's been nothing in between. And so one of the ways to monetize. I didn't ask this question, but I just want people to understand that it took me a while to learn to monetize my community, because I was just like, I felt guilty, if I'm being honest, because I'm like, well, we do good work. We shouldn't be making any money. I'm like, girl, do you want groceries? Right? Do you what? Do you want a safe place to live? And so ways to monetize your community is that you offer resources to them. Like, we always have a baseline of free, because my rule is you don't have to spend money with me to get help. But then we have other resources that we're like, hey, there's a book that might be helpful to you that I wrote, sure. Or we've got downloadables. We have some free ones, but these ones cost. And people are like, sure. But also, too, we partner with organizations that I do align with and say, I really actually do like this organization. And they give me $1 for every person that signs up, but I use this tool or resource. And so when people come into the group, one of the best things you can do, and I wish I would have started this sooner, is you get their name, you get their number, you get their email, but then they start with a starter kit. Welcome to the group. Here's what you can expect. It's me, Tiffany. Here's all the things, but also here are my favorite tools and resources. And that some of these tools and resources, certainly they pay me if you sign up, but I share them with you because I use them and I like them. So as soon as people come in, they might do enough activity for every person that comes in, generates $20-$30 for you. And so it really can be lucrative as well as really good soul work.
So yeah, that's the powerful thing about building a community, is that it's fulfilling, and it's also lucrative as well. You're able to feed yourself. I think what you just broke down there with like the content, the book, is the concept of a value journey. And it sounds like you've put a lot of, that was something that you really wish that you started earlier, was having an intentional value journey where people kind of came in, there were some free resources. It's a way to prove authority and value. Then, you got your low ticket membership, and then you've got your mid ticket stuff, and having that journey allows you to increase what we call in the industry lifetime value. So that means from a single member, we can go from $20 a month or just purchasing a book to several thousands, right? And
literally, some members have generated me hundreds of thousands. Here's how. That almost every time I'm working with some huge company, like some big bank, will say, Tiffany, we've heard so much about, we'd love to partner with you. And, I've gotten contracts that are multi-6-figure contracts, there's almost always a woman in that room who had taken my free challenge and joined the community and has been singing my praises. I don't know her. I've never met her, but she's been like, she took the challenge, she joined the community, all that stuff was free. And she has been telling her big bank, Tiffany's so amazing. You have to sign up with her. You have to join. And then I'm in here and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been talking about you for 4 years. I remember I worked with Ford, the car company. They gave me a car and I worked with them for like years and years and years because one woman. So you just don't know. You serve that community, people, workplaces, they have access that you're not going to have access to. My powder donut, she tapped into the CEO of a $1 billion organization, you see? And so so I just want to encourage people, because I think in a day and age where people think that they have to take in order to have, that you can give and have too. Yeah,
exactly. Through community, through focusing on relationships and results, right? The 2 R's. I love the term powdered donut effect. I'm so going to steal that. That's so amazing. Go ahead. So there's a lot to kind of dissect there. I want to kind of bring it back to, so a lot of people in the audience, they're getting started for the very first time. And what I see with a lot of new ventures is that there's a lot of resistance to, and you brought this up a little bit earlier, monetization. Money mindset stuff, which is your forte, right? This is your thing. And so, what we see at Mighty Networks, the average price is $38 a month. And, if we even go more high ticket, that could be $100 a month, in the thousands of, for a group coaching program. What is your advice for someone who is struggling with pricing psychology and charging what they're worth? What do you have to say to those people?
Well, I want to, I'm reading this book now called Go Giver, which is amazing. I don't have any relationship. They don't pay me no money. It's a book that has just, I was already a go giver, and I try to understand, okay, why are we successful? And this book breaks down 5 ways. But the number one thing you have to do is, 1, you have to create value. So it's not, people are not paying for your thing. They're paying for their thing. So it's not like, people don't say, oh my gosh, Tiffany, I want your book, because certainly there's a handful of people like, oh, we love you, we want to support. But the average person that bought my book is because they're like, girl, Tiffany Smithney, that's great. I need help. Will this book help me? Great. And so 1, you want to make sure that you're actually adding value. Before you're thinking about whether it should be $100, $200, is it valuable? Is it actually going to create transformation? Are you sure about that? Have you done your testing? Are you over delivering? What does that look like? So that's 1. But adding value is the first. The second thing that I've really learned that we were doing, but I really pulled out from this book, was that your income is going to be directly related to your impact. So impact is how many people do you serve to provide value. Preschool teacher Tiffany was a teacher. She provided value to 15 students a year. I made max I started off at $39,000 a year and I capped at 50 by the time $50,000. So that's what my value to 15 students a year generated me. Teacher Tiffany, I'm still a teacher. Budgetnista teacher Tiffany has provided value to 2 million people because I increased my impact. Same teacher, bigger impact. We're at 50 million. Do you see what I mean? 50,000, 50 million because more people got impact. So that's going to be really the key is that like, what is the impact? And then how many people can you reach with that impact? And so when you're thinking about pricing, I always like people to feel like I'm getting way more than what I'm paying for. You know, so whatever that might look like to you. So I'm not asking myself, what am I worth? I'm asking myself, is it worth it to this person? Because what I want is that, so we spend like, my marketing spend is higher than I'd like. It's 29% of the money we make goes to marketing. I'm trying to get down to like 15, right? But the better the powder donut, the less money I have to spend. Because if you tell your friend, I don't have to run an ad. And guess what happens? That's when people feel like, oh, what I purchased was so amazing that like I got to tell my mother, my sister, my cousin. And so consider, like, I want you to just holistically think of pricing. It's really not about you. Certainly, yes, you want to look at how much do you need to make and what your, you know, like what your business needs to make. But ultimately, if you provide value at a level of greater impact, you'll make more money. When I first started my Literature Academy, it was $10 a month. And we were making $2 million a year on a $10 a month product. Yes. And that was it. I remember like, I just, somebody didn't know better, you know, like now I can't even imagine. And we were, I want to say about 25 to 30% profitable, you know, on a $10 a month product. So I don't concern myself as much with like, it's got to be $2,000. It's got to be $10,000. It's got to be, it has to provide over and above whatever that I think I'm charged for. I want that person to feel so good that they tell someone else.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, what comes up for me is the need to focus from being intrinsic, you know, focusing on, and while that's all important, right? Goal setting, what is my not survival number, what's my thrive number, you know, in terms of financial goals. But really focusing on the intrinsic part of this, which is the impact, the people, the value, the results, right? And the more that I could take it more to an external focus as opposed to an internal focus, the money and the abundance will come.
Yes, it will. You will price it. And, you know, and here's the thing. It's hard to say because ultimately the market's going to tell you what the market's going to tell you. So like, look at, you know, I don't know if you know, like, there's this big debate over the Hermes bag. I don't know. They started like $15,000, these like really fancy handbags, right? Walmart came out with one that looked very close. And it was also leather, $78, right? So what's the difference between a $78 leather bag and a $15,000 leather bag? The market will pay. So I can't tell you that an Hermes bag is not worth $15,000. People are paying it. It's worth whatever people are willing to pay. So it's your job as a business owner is to, like, I rolled out, like I said, the academy at $10 a month. And because at first I wanted it to be like 25. And when I presented it to the audience, it was a big pushback. This was many, like about 8-9 years ago. And I said, okay, I'll put it on sale for $10 a month. And first day out, it was crazy how many people signed up, like 10,000 people signed up. And I said, okay. And then slowly we inched it. So you will have to play with the market to see what the market will bear, because I don't care what you think it's worth. If no one's buying it, it's not worth that. You know, if no one is buying your 1 cent product, guess what? The market said it's not worth 1 cent. You know, and so ultimately, you know, like a car is a car, but why do people pay more for a Mercedes than they pay for a Toyota? Like, let's be real, Toyota and Lexus, what's the real difference? It's the same company if you look inside, but people are paying for Lexuses more because they're just like, they have intrinsically created a value that makes people say, this is worth significantly more. But is it truly? The market will kind of tell you. So I still struggle with pricing, if I'm being honest, because I'm just like, you just never know. We do a lot of testing, you know, that like you test and then you see what the market says and then you adjust. That's really the key.
And what's awesome about what you built is, what I'm assuming is that before you test it externally with your audience, right? Like bring it out to your audience, you have a safe community that you could test.
There you go.
With, right? So bringing it back to the benefits of community,
yes.
You have a very forgiving and loyal segment of customers who can honestly give you the feedback around pricing, client success, all of that stuff.
A grace and space. That's what I say communities give you. Because when I tell you all the mess
mm,
ups we had, I mean, we should have been canceled a long time ago. Not canceled because we did it. Just because, we were like, oh, we sent it out. The link doesn't work. This is the, but we tested out in our safe community. I'm like, hey, community, we're going to test this thing out. I'm not really sure. Would love your feedback. Because we built this safe community, then as a result of that, yeah, we get so much grace and space, and then we could take it off to the broader world, and then we bring them back in to the community. And what happens is that as you start to build community, they will take care of the new people that come in. Welcome, welcome. It's great here. Sit here, do this. Me as teacher Tiffany, I don't even have to say as much because the students do that for me. And so like, you should all just be asking yourself, how can I build more? Communities are supposed to be safe spaces, right? For transformation. Like if I could describe like what is a community as it relates to your business, a safe space to achieve transformation. That's it, right? Amongst other people. And so how can I create that? So I like to have communities for different things. Like we have, with Mighty Networks, we have communities for people who want to invest. We have a business community. We have people who are really struggling financially. We have people who are, make good money, but they're not really sure what to do with it. So even now I'm experimenting with segmenting the community so people find their people and they can be on a journey similar to each other. That's how you keep people going, because imagine like if you had like they had the one room schoolhouse back in the day where you're like in first grade and 12th grade in the same room. It's really hard, but it's like, okay, let's separate the 12th graders from the 11th graders, from the 10th graders. So everybody, you're more aligned with being on the same trajectory. So that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jackie, my cousin said, hey, I'm like, oh, she's here. Hey, girl.
That's amazing. My mom's probably in the audience.
Hey, Topper's mom.
So to take it back to, the different segments of community members that you just mentioned, Hadar earlier talked about the importance of having different member success paths, right? Yes. Per different ideal members, because they all kind of want different things, or there's different stages to the journey of financial education. You talked about there being a segment in your audience or in your community focusing on business.
Yeah.
As a financial educator and coach, what is your opinion of, so there's investing in the S&P 500, budgeting, all that kind of stuff, lowering down expenses. Then there's also starting a business. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion of starting an online business as the pathway to financial independence, success, and fulfillment?
I think it's one of the ways. So I think that most people's goal is to grow wealth. And there are multiple ways to grow wealth. And so we have the communities that diverge. Once you pass the financial fundamentals community, then we offer you, do you want to grow wealth through investing, or do you want to grow wealth through starting a business? So we have those two because we've identified that those are the core two ways that it's probably going to be, I don't want to say the fastest, but most efficient ways to growing wealth. And so for me, I mean, a business has made me a millionaire, literally from a preschool teacher to a millionaire. And I want to say that it took, I stopped teaching in 2009. And by the time I was like 37, so I don't know, like less than 10 years, I became legitimately like, not a millionaire. Like if you add up all my things, no, like I could see $1 million in the bank. Shorty, what you think? Like a cash.
That's after all the expenses. Yes. That's like money in the bank, $1 million.
Money, there's 7 figures in my investment account. That kind of millionaire, right?
That is amazing.
So I know for a fact that is an avenue. So and it's not for everybody. That's the thing. Like, entrepreneurship will beat you up. If you want to see yourself and hold a mirror to yourself, entrepreneurship is going to show you who you are. It's going to require therapy. It's going to require self-reflection because your business is never going to be better than who you are.
Yeah.
And so you have to literally grow up and be a better person. The better person that you become, the better business that you get to run and experience. Because you can make a lot of money, but I know people who make a lot of money and lose the rest of life. And so like, to me, having a good business is not just what's your revenue, what's your profit margin. No, it's also how are you living? Do people like working with you and working for you? And so, I think to me, starting a business, if you have the stomach for it, is a great way to grow sustainable wealth. I mean, I'm always amazed at like the opportunities I get to have, but also with business too, you get to meet other people in the space that you'll be surprised. Like I do like a lot of TV, like Good Morning America, Today Show and things. And so sometimes you're in the green room with like really famous people. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, is that such and such? And they're like, Budgetnista? I'm like, what? Oh, how do
Me?
you know me? I know. And so business also opens up, so it enriches your life financially, but also too, just like personally. I mean,
Opportunities.
yeah, so many opportunities. I mean, I've been to
Yeah.
the White House so many times, not the current
Wow.
White House, but the White House so many times. And just like, I mean, just so many opportunities. I
Yeah.
would not have chosen anything else, but yes, it certainly can be a path
Yeah.
to growing wealth, but not just for you, but for your family.
So let's zoom in on the entrepreneurship is hard piece. So
Mhm.
there's this life. Have you heard of the entrepreneurial life cycle? I can walk through it, but basically, it's the journey that all entrepreneurs go through. So
Okay.
when you first have an idea for something, it's called the honeymoon phase, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like a brand new relationship. You're super excited at starting it. You're like full of motivation and inspiration, and then you move from the honeymoon phase to what we call the grind phase, right? It's where you actually go into what it takes to build an online business, right?
Yeah.
The setting up the Stripe account, setting up, all the logistical things. And it's like, this is actually a little bit hard. And then
Mhm.
what happens is that people then end to what we call the valley of despair. And unfortunately, this is where 99% of
Mm.
entrepreneurs stop their businesses. It's the business graveyard. But the thing is that if you just give it more time, more energy, try, have the guidance, um, you know, do the right things, you can then move to what we call the upward spiral, right? So it's moving from a place of from a valley of despair to momentum, and then after the upward spiral is success and fulfillment. So for you, you're in the success and fulfillment stage, and you've gone through the ups and downs of business. What was the mental frame that you embodied throughout the grind and valley of despair phases? Can you walk me through what
Yeah.
would you say to your younger self?
Oh, honestly, it took a while so one of the things that I had to learn, I remember I had read some articles some years back about how do people go from millionaire to billionaire? Like what's the mindset shift? And it said something like the way they embrace failure. Like what does that actually mean? Like that they did the study and billionaires actually welcomed it. Like, oh yes, so glad because it gave you the opportunity for growth. And I remember thinking, like, I think I read this in like high school or college. And I remember thinking that I wanted to be a person, not necessarily a billionaire, but I wanted to be a person that I was not, failure didn't kick me in the stomach. I
Mm,
welcomed knowing when something was wrong because that meant
mm,
I could fix it. Then I'm like, so we did our annual challenge. We made six figures in profit. It was great. My team was so stressed out because so many things went wrong with the tech, whatever. And I was like, duh, it was supposed to. And they're like, oh, I don't get it. I'm like, first of all, it's January. I want to know what doesn't work. I want you to think of every new idea you have like you're building a boat. You chose the tree, you cut the tree down, you hollowed it out, you waterproofed it. Eventually, how do I know if this boat is okay? You have to put it in the water. So this is essentially we put this new boat into the lake, and guess what? There's a leak here. There's things here. There's things. That's the intention. I was so happy we found those things because better that now than when we go for a cruise and we're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Like now we're just finding the leaks. But you see that shift in mindset from oh my gosh, things are wrong to oh my gosh, yes, we found the things that are wrong. So that was the shift because I definitely was in the despair, like, girl, just get a job, just get a job, just get a job. And I was like, no, 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 I think I can do it. I mean, I was renting a room in my 30s. I had to move back home with my parents. I was struggling so bad. I was negative 300,000. I was $300,000 in debt because I lost my condo. I had credit card debt, student loan debt. I slept on my sister's couch for a year. At that age, I was like 33, 34. So I was grown, you know?
wow.
And then I was like, by like 34, I was renting a room for $500 a month and I was struggling to pay that. And it was like,
Mm,
Tiffany, go get a job. The Budgetnista is not working. I was like, just one more year, And then that's when it clicked to me where I just was like, are you like what things are going wrong? How do you embrace being happy about those things so you can fix it? The thing you should be afraid of is when you can't figure out what's wrong, meaning
mm,
that like everything seems so perfect and I'm not moving. If year by year there is no growth, something's wrong. That's what's wrong. Like something should be shifting year by
yeah.
year. Now I embrace the mistakes. I want to know because I realize now that $500 mistake saved me 5,000. That $5,000 mistake
Mm,
saved me for 50,000. I think about that. That's what I tell myself. Like, I'm like, oh, you just made a $50,000 mistake. Oh, that means that in the future, it's going to save you from a $500,000 mistake. Okay, $50,000 is so bad then. That's what I
I'll
tell
take it.
myself. Yes.
Yeah,
And so
gladly.
you have to, because if not, you will do this, which is so unhealthy. And I've been there. Blood pressure up, 30 pounds up, unhealthy. And I just
Mm,
was like, so because the business is not going to get easier, you have to get better. So that's the thing. Like the Budgetnista is not easier to run. I'm just less stressed about it because I also understand the ups and downs are part of it. When I was a kid, Topper, I grew really fast in high school, so much so that my joints couldn't catch up with my growth. And I had the legal, like not the legal, but the medical terminology. I've had growing pains. I didn't know that was like a
mm,
real thing. Like I literally had crutches, and so until I could my joints could catch up. And so now I think to myself, oh, growing pains are an indicator of growth. So if this is happening, we're in a painful. I actually get excited when we're in a painful position. 2023 was a very hard year of business for us, and I definitely was down in the dumps about it. But then I was like, wait,
mm,
there must be growth on the other side of it. Okay, well, I'll take this
mm.
temporary pain because we're taller Tiffany as a result on the other side. And sure enough, 2024 was much better. In 2025, we are seeing astronomical growth. I just taped a special for PBS, and they told me it's going to go to 50 million households. But guess who's ready? Because in 2023, the things that we were struggling with are what we had to get together. Then I'm like, oh, that's why. Because I'm about to be 50 million households. Had that struggle not happened, I wouldn't have fixed it. And we would not be ready for 50 million people to come. See, when my Netflix special came out, I did not fully understand how many people were going to come, and we were not ready. But this time around, we had our growing pains. And now when those 50 million people come to our site and our tools, they will be joining community. They'll be getting my digital courses. We are ready for them, but it did not happen without that friction before.
That
So
friction.
welcome that friction.
Reframing friction to
Yes.
feedback in order to fuel the next evolution of the
Okay, that's
business.
alliteration, reframing, friction for feedback. Okay.
You gotta
And
drop
yeah,
a bar.
that is a bar.
But when we reach different levels of business, right? Like your first six figures, what got you there isn't going to get to the
Oh,
next million. There's
first
different
6 figures is the
processes,
hardest.
systems. First six figures is the hardest.
Yes.
So walk me through that actually for you. So you mentioned, you did a $10 membership, it got to $2 million in revenue. But let's even go a little further down that.
Yeah.
Walk me through the process of reaching your first six figures and what was the vehicle to that? What was the product? What was the pathway?
So first 6 figures is just you, basically. I didn't have anyone. It was just me. And it's you can brute strength your way to first 6 figures, but it took me almost 5 years to get to 6 figures. And it was just like I was doing speaking engagements, I was doing curriculum, I was doing, and so it was like I didn't have my online school yet. It was a lot of Tiffany having to put the work in. And I remember thinking, how can I possibly get to 1 million? Because how many more Tiffany's do I need to be? Because this,
Mm,
I want to say year 5, I hit $150,000 gross. I took home 50. I was making 50 as a preschool teacher. Like, so I was like, I'm just not getting to the preschool teacher, like I was like, I don't know if this is worth it. That was the valley of despair. I was like, I don't know if this is
mm,
worth it. I'm killing myself. And so then I had said, so the first I wouldn't say your first 6 figures is just, are you willing to put in the work? That's the test. You talk about it, Topper. You about this life. That's what that first 6 figures is. It's really to get you prepared to. If you're not about this life, it's okay. There's a job is great, And then to get to 7 figures, the shift that I had to make was I had to shift and I had to build team. Because I had to learn that like you cannot do this all yourself. So it took me, it's funny, 5 years to get to 6, 2 years to get to 7 figures.
yep.
And I was like, because I
Yep.
had a team. And I said, okay, Tiffany. But I still was working my behind off. And I was like, okay, you have a team, you get to 7. But I'm like, how do you get to 8 figures in a year? So I was like, can we get to a year and a half later, we got to our first $10 million. And that shift was, I had to learn to let the team do their work. I said, Tiffany, move out of the way and to be more efficient. with my
Yeah.
team. And so that was, I had to actually learn that at that $10 million a year mark, I actually had to learn to work less, to go deep versus wide, because I was chasing every lead, we could do this, we could do that. And we were exhausted. So it's
Yes.
like, you have to learn to work hard. And I thought that working hard part in the beginning for six figures, it had to look like that always. It was like, no, no, no. Are you about this life working hard? Then can you bring other people on board and learn to lead them? Then can you actually work smarter, more strategic? That is that 8-figure. I haven't got to 9 figures yet. I mean, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe one day, but and so
We'll do a
that is
part 2 of this interview once
yeah,
we do it. Yeah.
right. But those were the lessons that, like, it was, truthfully, it was certainly, yes, tactical things, but I have to honestly say, the way I went from 6 to 7 to 8 figures was a mental shift. That was all it was. I had to shift mentally. One of my favorite, his name is Jim Rohn. I'm sure so many of you guys have heard of him. He's passed a long time ago. He was like the Tony Robbins before Tony Robbins. So he's got a bunch of YouTube videos where you can watch him talk. He's basically like an inspirational speaker, right?
Mm.
And coach and stuff. So I love to watch his videos. When he was a young man, his mentor told him, Jim, I want you to try to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for the man it will make you. And so what he knew is that in order for Jim to become a millionaire, that there was going to have to be mental shifts along the way, that you cannot get to here without changing here. And that your success is locked inside your head and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever is holding you back, I promise you, it's not externally. It's not the political system. It's not the law. It's not nope. It's literally, it is locked inside your head and heart. And the better you get to know yourself, the better you get to figure out whatever it is. I always think of my life as like playing a video game. I'm stuck on this board. What is it that I'm missing? Like, oh, you don't know how to ask for help. Okay, I got to learn that. Oh, you don't know how to lead. Okay, you don't know how to set boundaries. Okay, you don't know how to rest. Okay. If I get stuck on a board for too long, I'm asking myself, oh, you're stuck on this board, Tiffany. What's happening here? Because we haven't moved. And so it's me. Like, how do I get to know myself better? And then, but there's no such thing. The boards are never ending. Like at 8 figures now, it's like, so what I'm asking myself even now, why am I stuck? I won't say stuck. I mean, who's mad at 10 million? But like, what is if I want to ascend to the next level, I'm realizing that for me, one of the things was I need to share in leadership. So I actually bringing on a co-CEO, because there are things I'm really, 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 really good at. And I'm realizing that I actually need to chop off even more of the work for myself and to only do what Tiffany's good at, which is this. Like, I could do this all day long. I'm like, I don't want to look at the damn numbers. Like, if I got to, though, I'm like, okay, after this, I'm like, all right, let's look at the marketing meeting and let's look at the financial. But do you see, I see the comments, y'all are loving it, right? Because this is what I do. Like, what I call the razzle dazzle, right? I'm like, leave me to razzle dazzle. I will bring all of the things home, but then someone else has to organize the strategic plan behind. I've been doing it, but it's not something that I do as well as somebody else.
Yeah. You have to focus on being the powdered donut bakery.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? You've got to, you are the CEO, you're the visionary, you're the original source of the mission.
Yes.
And so you have to, the next opportunity for you going from 7 to 8 is learning to kind of actually remove yourself from parts of the business that you could be good at.
Yeah.
But also there might be other people who are better at that, and you could focus on that one thing. So, and that requires a lot of trust,
Yes.
A lot of trust, especially when
I'm a nervous Nelly. I'm like, what you doing, bro? What's going on? People think I'm so like likable that I'm easy breezy. I'm anxious. I'm like, what's happening? What'd you say? What'd you do? And so my team is like, all right, girl, you got it. And I'm like, Tiffany, you're never gonna grow. Let them people make the choices. So yes, I'm recognizing what I'm really good at, carving out the rest. So because if I'm free to fly, imagine what I'll bring back. How many PBS specials, how many Netflix specials, how many, like if I could just focus on that and just say, bring it home, and then everybody else chops it up and prepares the meal, then we're cooking with grease,
Mm-hmm. Zooming into the first 6 figures part where, the focus is on you, getting your name out there, being visible, right? Yeah. For a lot of people, that's, you said it yourself, the first 6 figures are the hardest.
Yes.
There's a lot of imposter syndrome that might come up, right? Mm-hmm. Fear of failure, which you said you had to change your relationship with failure, right? What else what other advice do you have for people who are stepping into kind of their own limelight and overcoming their imposter syndrome to then make their first six figures in their online community?
Well, I'll say this is that you have to you get to decide. Everyone doesn't have to be like, I'm a razzle dazzler. That's just, I mean, this is not just me putting on. Everybody knows me, second grade, third grade. I always said Tiffany talks too much. Like now I get to talk too much for a living. But that is, but the third, remember I said the Go Giver book, that like the third component is authenticity. If you are quiet and measured and be that, like it'll be a group that is attracted to your quiet, measured ways. Do not try to be what you're not. You know, I remember like if you look back at my old YouTube videos, oh man, I was really putting on because I was like, hello, my name is Tiffany. And you kind of, what? Knowing me now, it's like, that is not Tiffany. But I thought this is how I had to show up, you know, for people. And so I remember what happened once, like that I slipped up one day because so my stepdaughter's name is Alyssa. But Alexa used to always think like, you know, the whatever that Alexa, that listening device in your daggone house. Like, so I was telling Alyssa, close the door because I was doing a live. And Alexa was like, what do you need? And now meanwhile I'm live. I'm like, not you, Alexa. Alexa was like, yes, what do you need? And I was like, Alexa, ain't nobody talking to you. Then I looked, I realized I'm still live. I showed my real self. And the comments blew up. And oh my God, Tiffany, you're so hilarious. And it was like this like mental shift, like, why have you been hiding yourself? You know, like if you actually, one of my mentors told me that greatness is polarizing. I want someone to watch me and say, she's not for me. Great. I want to push that person away. Because then you are actively pulling the exact type of person that's going to love you towards you. And that is a person that's going to support your book and your digital course and your. I want a community full of raving Tiffany fans. I don't want anybody who's there who is like, oh, Tiffany's too much. Yes, you're right. Bye. We wish you well. You know, and that's okay. So you don't mind being polarizing. But the only way you can do that is to truly just be yourself.
Own your authenticity.
Own your authenticity. That is one of the core things that you can do. You know, aside from building value, creating impact, how many people can you serve? How can you be authentically you? Because we all, as human beings, have this unique ability to feel when people are being themselves. It's like, I am human. Nothing human is alien to me. I know when you're not yourself. You're not. Have you ever get secondhand embarrassment when someone is doing a speech? You're like, oh my gosh, this person is bombing because right? You can feel it. You're like, you feel the anxiousness, and you try to smile. I'm the one who's like trying to smile in the audience, like, you're doing good, you know, right? So when someone is not authentic, you feel like, what are they hiding? Something is wrong. So own that. You don't have to be big and bubbly. Whatever you are, be that, and people will find you.
The right people will find you. And typically in this business of being a creator, being a coach, being an a community host, is that we are typically attracting a previous version of ourselves.
Yeah.
So the more that we can align our messaging, the way that we show up on camera, the way that we are to who we truly are authentically, the more that we build a business that has the foundation of the right alignment. Right. So really beautiful. Awesome. Cool.
Like,
I feel like
look at Tabitha Brown, right? Super country, I mean, Miss Tabitha is just like, hey, baby. That's not for everybody, but the people who love her. And she is slaying it, you know?
Exactly.
Like, yeah. I just want you to just know. And also, too, if I would end with this, I just want you to remind yourself that, because you're human, ask yourself, how would I want to be treated? What communities am I a part of? Why do I like them so much? What is it that's drawing me here? Not the surface, like, oh, she's nice. No, dig deeper. How do you know she's nice? How does she illustrate that? What does that mean? You know, because you get to pull out those lessons and say, how do I show up in that way? You know, because I promise you, you don't have to, I read a lot, but oftentimes the answer is already here because you are experiencing the world as a consumer, as a community member. Bring that goodness back to your people. If you put your people first, people, purpose, then profit. If you do that, you will do well.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable, for sharing your journey, sharing your experience, having amazing sound advice for all of the people who are getting started. I want to give you a chance to share any additional last second kind of feedback, or where can people find you as well? What would you like to share with the audience here?
I'm the Budgetnista everywhere. I don't TikTok much, but I am on Instagram. So go ahead and follow me there. Yeah, and if you're wanting, like I have, like if you really do want to get good with money, I'm doing my Vanna Black. If you do want to get good with money, it's available at getgoodwithmoney.com. But honestly, yeah, just start now. Like whatever you think, whatever you're holding back for, it's never going to be the perfect time was yesterday. The second perfect time is today. Okay. Lure your community in, give them something to do, and don't despair in humble beginnings. That if there are 5 people, treat it like it's 500. 5 people don't want to feel like, don't want to feel like, oh, it's only us, so she's not giving her best. No. When I first started speaking, I remember I used to do libraries. Sometimes it'd be me and the security guard. And I'm like, whatever, I'm going to pop out, And so, give your best to the people that you serve best. And so I can't wait to see what your communities develop into. And Mighty Networks is such a great tool. We've been using it. We just keep expanding to add more and more communities. So you're in really good hands here.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you again for your time, for your energy, for your enthusiasm. It's been such a pleasure. I could see the chat blowing up. Everyone has loved your session. If everyone can drop a fire emoji and send their waves over to Tiffany, thank you so much. And
no, you're welcome, Topher. It was great meeting you.